This is the eLearn podcast. If you're passionate about the future of learning, you're in the right place. The expert guests on this show provide insights into the latest strategies, practices, and technologies for creating killer online learning outcomes. My name's Laddick, and I'm your host from OpenLMS. The eLearn podcast is sponsored by eLearn Magazine, your go-to resource for all things online learning. Click-by-click how-to articles, the latest in EdTech, a spotlight on successful outcomes and trends in the marketplace. Subscribe today and never miss a post at elearnmagazine.com. And OpenLMS, a company leveraging open source software to deliver a highly effective, customized, and engaging learning experience for schools, universities, companies, and governments around the world since 2005. Learn more at openlms.net. Hi there, I'm Laddick. This episode is part of a live, real-time series that I recorded at the 2022 EDUCAUSE conference in Denver, Colorado. In this conversation, I speak with Kimberly Moore about her work today and in the future around micro-credentialing at Wichita State. And just a quick reminder, you can make sure to never miss an episode of the podcast by subscribing at elearnmagazine.com. Now, I give you Kimberly Moore.
Kimberly Moore, you're at Wichita State, is that correct?
Yes. I'm the Executive Director of Workforce Professional and Community Ed at Wichita State. Been there about 27 years.
Holy smokes. My dad's from Kansas City. I've been to Kansas an awful lot. Tell me, so as someone, Director of Workforce, et cetera, what does that mean? What are you focusing on at Wichita State? Is that bringing people or making sure that students are leaving with a job at the end of the day, or what?
So I work mainly with older students. Not the traditional age students. I work with those individuals that have been out in the workforce and maybe are looking to upscale or gain some new skills, because as we know, the workforce is constantly changing. And so there's always a need for continuing education. And so that's what we provide from my office.
Awesome. Fantastic. And you actually just about an hour and a half ago gave your panel, or were part of a panel about micro-credentialing.
Yes.
And the thing that I found really interesting about at least the blurb on your micro-credentialing on the panel was that it can be done many different ways.
Yes.
And so tell us about the Wichita State experience. Like, how have you chosen to first identify this was really important, second, kind of what the genesis was and bringing it in, and what have the results kind of been?
Well, I started with badge development about 8 years ago.
Okay.
So I consider myself an old goat when it comes to digital credentials. It really came about as we were going to Chamber of Commerce meetings and other meetings of employers within our area. And what I was hearing was, we're hiring Wichita State graduates, but then we're spending a year to 2 years to upskill them so that they can do the job. Mm-hmm. So they're coming out with degrees, but they're not coming out with skills and competencies that enable them to do the work that we need done.
Okay.
And so we saw there was a disconnect. And so we began looking for ways in which we could meet employer needs and also the needs of our community, because at that time we were undergoing a lot of layoffs because of the pandemic. Okay. Well, through the years, back in 2008, there was the financial crisis.
Sure. Okay.
And we're very sensitive to the aircraft industry.
Oh, okay.
And we rely heavily on that as we have a large manufacturer.
Is it Bombardiers near you?
Yes, it's there, Spirit, Airbus.
Right.
So we have a number of companies that are located in Wichita.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, we're always looking for ways to support them. And so people after that happened, and then the pandemic came along, especially where there were a lot of layoffs and people in need of new jobs and new skills. We decided that not everybody needed. I've worked with engineers, and they already have bachelor's, sometimes master's degrees. They don't need another degree.
Right.
But what they do need are skills, competencies in areas of new technology. Okay. And so we saw opportunities there for badges in the workforce and in healthcare, constantly evolving. And so, again, another area where we could offer badges and upskill people so that they were able to keep up with modern technology.
And so, what are the top 4 or 5 badges or the credentials that are at least in your area you're seeing? I mean, are they big brand driven like Salesforce and Microsoft and those kinds of things, or are these like what are they?
So they're very specific to our area. They're like the first badge I developed was in the area of public health.
Oh, wow.
So I got to choose what the area was, and I had relationships in the area of public health. And so what I knew at that time, 7, 8 years ago, is that public health is undergoing accreditation, health departments throughout the country. And Kansas was no different. And a lot of the people working in those health departments have degrees. They're nurses, administrators, they have masters in public health science. So they didn't need another degree. But what they did need were the skills necessary to develop their plan for accreditation. And so we developed a series of 6 badges specific to that to help them guide them through the process of accreditation and support their employees. So it was their badges were open to anybody from the entry-level workers up through administration and on a variety of topics. And so that was really where we started, seeing that there was this need in the workforce, and that's where we began our badge journey, and that was our first series of 6 badges.
Tell me, okay, so the badge journey, I like that because, as you say yourself, I developed my first badge. You said there, so you're not developing it through, another credential provider.
No,
so
these
how are
ours.
you? Yeah, so how are you hosting them? Where do they? And then, for someone who's a learner maybe right now out there, or even another university who isn't as savvy as you, what does that look like both for the institution as well as the learner in terms of where does it live? Who owns it? How do I prove that it's a real thing? That kind of stuff.
So I think that's an important distinction. At Wichita State, to get some clarity for it, the program is we define it as a credit course. So it's 4 credit, not non-credit, as it is in many other institutions, of 1 credit hour or less. It is graded on a pass-fail, so it's either you're awarded a BG, badge granted, or an MBG, no badge granted. It lives on your official university transcript, so it stays with you forever.
Wow.
Unlike non-credit that you get a certificate and nobody really knows 10, 20 years later where it's at, this forever is part of your permanent academic record. And
so as long as the institution survives.
Yes, I think we're good because we've been around a long time, 1800s. So
I actually have the problem. The place where I got my MBA no longer exists.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a political situation. Nothing else.
I think we're safe. So you know that when you get something from Wichita State, that it is also met, because it's 4 credit, it has met the credentialing process of the Higher Learning Commission, as well as if it's a badge in the area of social work, it has underwent their review and their accreditation standards for their specific department. So, for example, our badges live in colleges. I'm not a college, I'm a department.
Right.
So I have to partner with an academic college, with the dean and the department chair and the faculty of the academic colleges. They are the host, the home for the badges.
Wow.
So the badges meet very strict criteria. Badges you have to have a pass rate of 80% or better on every assignment in order to get that BG.
Okay.
So it is not dumbed down education, as some people think. All our badges are online, so they're fully accessible to people, especially in the workforce who may travel. In the aircraft industry, that's very common to travel to different locations for your work. Or in public health, for example, when COVID came along, a lot of people, it was disruptive to the workforce. And so people had to schedule things around the extra responsibilities that they took on because of it. And so badges are very flexible. For fall, our badges, you can begin a badge in August, but you also can begin it up until about the week before Thanksgiving. So unlike regular academic courses where you begin at a certain date in August and you end at a certain date in December, that's not badges. Badges have to be flexible in order to meet workers' needs.
Of course, yeah.
And so you can begin a badge in August. Let's say you have to go to France on business and you're gone the month of September. Perfectly okay. Self-paced in that you can continue on while you're there, or you may need to pick it up when you get back. But you must complete a badge in the term in which you started.
Okay.
Sure. So it must be completed in December.
Fantastic.
But it's very flexible. We really designed it with the worker in mind, and so that it's something that they can do on their time. And there is, unlike a MOOC, people always ask me, well, is this like a MOOC?
Yeah, sure.
Is there any live person associated with this? Yes, there is. We have faculty, our regular faculty, that meet all the requirements of the Higher Learning Commission. And so they interact. It's a little bit different in that you may have a single person going through a badge in August and another that starts it in September. So it's not necessarily a cohort like we see in a regular academic classroom. It's very much their discussion boards, and past students, the work that they've contributed to discussion boards are also something that can be accessed by the students. So they can see other questions that were asked. And there are assignments. So some of it is online, and the student works through, and then there are certain measures built into the system that they have to achieve the 80% or better pass rate on. And then there are written assignments or projects also that then have to be submitted to the instructor at the university.
That are graded.
Grades it. So no, it's not like a MOOC, it's an actual live faculty member that you interact with that follows you through the class, responds to your questions, and interacts with you on an individual basis.
So is this, so now take me to some of the reception. I mean, now you've been doing it for years, so you've got a process, and this is a known thing, but is it seamless when you go to another college, or maybe there's wow, I've got all kinds of questions, sorry. So are colleges coming to you and saying, we want to develop a badge, how do we do this? Or are you proposing to them, is it both ways? And then sort of a sub-question is, do you find that the departments and the professors are they like able to fit this in as part of their modality in teaching? They're like, look, I've got some in-person classes, I've got some of these badges that I'm paying attention to, etc. Like, how does that work after the badge is developed?
So colleges come to me all the time for advice. And I'm happy always to share my experiences. And I always tell them, don't start where I started, start where I am.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yes. And so I can save them a lot of time and effort if they talk to me now versus the person I was 8 years ago when I too was looking for people to talk to. And so I don't go out and seek people. People tend to seek me for advice, and I'm happy to provide it. I don't operate a consulting business on the side. I just do it because it's important to share our work and to support other institutions in what they're doing. And so as far as, I'm trying to get your second part of your question, we were interrupted.
Sorry. So I was basically saying, do departments approach you? First of all, for instance, there's a new college that says, hey, we would like to create a badge. But then what's the training? Is there a training process, or how do professors fit that into their modality of delivery?
Right. So people approach, in the beginning, no one approached me. The president...
You're out there selling.
The president mandated that every college, we have 6 academic colleges, would put forward 2 badge proposals every fall. Well,
that's ambitious.
It was ambitious, and it may not be. In hindsight, we ended up with a lot of badges, and I call it quantity over quality.
Okay, sure.
And that's really important to know. It's not the quantity of badges, it's the quality of badges. And really, badges aren't a good fit for every subject. And so I'm approached a lot by faculty, and they have a passion project, a personal interest.
Sure.
And they said, I want to do a badge. And I said, well, tell me about it. And medieval history. So what's the workforce need for this? Well, there is.
Yeah.
So we require, when a faculty member or college comes forward with a badge proposal, that they have supporting data that says that there are this many job openings in this area, that people are not being hired, they can't find qualified candidates because they're lacking the skills necessary to do the job, things like that, maybe national studies or data from recognized publications that deal in that. And so they have to put forward some effort into researching and supporting their idea, because that avoids a lot of badges that maybe...
I would think that naturally as well, that's just a great practice to make sure that the ivory tower is connected to the real world, right?
Yes. And so, where we started was that way, where faculty were encouraged to come to us with any idea, and then we would turn it into a badge. Well, over 7 years, we developed over 90 badges. Lots of different badges. Jazz improv. Well, that really wasn't very...
I haven't seen many of those on LinkedIn.
No. They're not many jobs for individuals that need that skill. However, the badges that did really well were the badges that were for licensed professionals. So nurses, social workers, engineers, people that needed relicensure. So our badges not only provide college credit, but for licensed professionals, contact hours for relicensure.
Sure,
so,
ongoing education.
Yes. And so that's a really additional benefit of the badges. And so our badges, the instructors are paid a stipend to develop the badges, and then they're also paid a stipend to teach the badges. And so it's overload in most cases. And so that's good. I mean, they're paid overload to teach and to develop the badges. And so it's not part of their regular duties. They come to us with these ideas. I had one faculty member, she's developed 12 HR badges, which were really strategic because the people that you need to convince of the value of badges are your human resource managers, all of the workers. And so she created a badge series.
She knew what she was doing.
Yes, for human resource managers. Mm-hmm. So then they got to experience badges, so they knew what they were sending their employees to, what the experience would be. And so faculty come with ideas. Again, they're vetted and they're funded. And then we launch about 8 to 10 new badges a year now.
Wow. And so when it comes, you said they're overloaded when it comes to developing the badge. Mm-hmm. What does that look like on the other side then? So let's take this HR professional, someone who's already teaching a full full course load. They've got maybe research as well that they're doing. And then this is another piece of their teaching portfolio, or?
It's overload. They're paid overload to teach it.
Oh, okay.
So she's amazing.
I was going to say, she sounds like a person who we probably need to meet.
Yeah, well, we had a badge instructor, and he had over 400 students. And I told you how our badges, you could start them over a period of months. He was managing like 400 students, trying, at all different stages of the process. And it's pretty amazing. The students, we evaluate the students, and they had a great experience with him. So, it's an interesting process.
Awesome. I think I need to wrap up because I think that our next guest is here. I apologize. I was having so much fun with this conversation. I didn't realize that the half hour went like that, as usual. But how does somebody get in touch with you? Like, can they just reach out at Wichita State and say,
Sure.
hey, I'd love to figure out how to, because the part I didn't ask you about was, what's the tech actually look like in order to be able to, if I'm a learner, how do I put this out there to show that it's real? Where do I point employers to, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, we use Credly as our badging platform, and once you are awarded your badge, you can claim it on Credly, and then you can link it to your LinkedIn, your Smart Resume, various different platforms, however you want to share it. They can contact me by going to wichita.edu/badges, and there you will find contact information, our badge catalog, all sorts of information on what we're doing.
Thank you so much for coming by. This has been fascinating. Have a good day.
Yeah.
All right, up next, we'll see. Chris will put it up there on the screen.
Thanks again for joining me for the eLearn podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Just push subscribe on your player right now. And remember, you can join the conversation live on YouTube, Facebook, and my LinkedIn feed every week. I hope to see you there. Thanks.